Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Jeff. Let's get a screen on here so you can all see my beautiful face for the afternoon. There we go. Mike Bloom, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. You look all bundled up over there. Is it cold in New
I
York?
don't know why it looks that way. It does look really uh, bad. No, it doesn't look bad. It just looks a little thicker. All right, hey, listen, this is Jeff Colson and Bloomer, Mike Bloom. We're here to talk junior hockey live today. We'll do what we normally do. We'll cover a couple of teams, a couple of players. And we got a special guest today. A little bit later, in a few minutes after we get warmed up here a little bit, we'll jump on with Neil Ravin from the EHL. He is one of the commissioners for the league, and we'll talk to him a little bit about the EHL and get a little perspective from a different angle as we try to keep you informed about all your different choices and all the different leagues out there at the junior level. Not major junior, but junior tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. So I look forward to that. I'm excited. Neil's been doing this for a while, and I'm very excited to talk to him. But first, I've got to talk to Bloom. Okay, so we haven't done a show in. Did we do a show
Couple
last
weeks.
week?
Couple weeks now. Yeah, it's been a little hiatus for us.
Um, did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, it was nice. Pretty simple, which is always good. I know you were traveling for yours, so how was yours?
Well, Buffalo got hit with like 64 feet of snow, and it happened right when we were leaving. So we had to adjust our trip and add like 4 or 5 hours on to drive around the lake effect snow. So it was long, but we went to Wisconsin. My daughter came in from Dallas. My son's going to school in Wisconsin, and we rented an Airbnb out there, and we had a good time. We enjoyed it. Spent a week out there, and very, very secluded area. Middle Wisconsin's already pretty secluded, but we went one step further than just being in middle Wisconsin. We tried to find the utmost place where no other people were at. So, but it was fun. Had a great time and
Did
really
that
enjoyed it.
area get hit with snow too?
No, but I can tell you this: there are really stars up in the sky. When you turn all the lights out, it was like it was not 3 dimensional; it was like 4 or 5 dimensional on the stars. Horizon to horizon, because there was no lights within probably 1,000 miles of where we were staying at. So, anyway, listen, hey, we're gonna start right off with Mike. Let's jump right in and talk about the teams and players. Let's highlight them first. No, no, no,
Yep.
no, no. I'm sorry. I want to do this the other way around. Let's get Neil on. Let's chat with Neil a little bit about the EHL. I think I can get him on right here and join us. And I just got to figure out where he's going to be at here. I'm going to add him to my there you go. Hey, Neil, how you doing, man?
Good, how you doing?
Awesome. Hey, nice Christmas tree. You framed yourself
Oh
well.
God, right?
Uh, there we go. Nice, nice. All right, so Neil, we got you on to talk about the EHL. A lot going on, but first of all, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the EHL, how long you've been involved, and a little bit about your history at it first.
Okay, so this is the 10th season of the league, the EHL. It's the 8th season that they've had the EHLP, the subdivision. So for the EHLP, the first year is when I came in. So this is my 8th season as well. To be totally honest, when I came in, I had no idea what junior hockey was. But I know that I had a few friends that had played it. I know that back prior to when I was graduating high school, there were some teams that had reached out to me about playing it, but I wasn't really quite interested. And I went to college more to focus on my studies. I wanted to be a broadcaster really for the longest time. I wanted to be, I don't know, broadcaster for the Boston Red Sox for the longest time. I went to Quinnipiac University for broadcast journalism. While I was there, I was a part of their own student broadcasting network, and I think it kind of just I loved sports, but I got more and more and more into sports. When I got out of college, I was fortunate enough to move back home with my parents for a couple of years, but I, at the same time, worked every single minor league sports game, if you will, in the city of Portland, Maine for 2 seasons. Combine that between the Portland Sea Dogs, who were a Double-A baseball team, and the Portland Pirates, who were an AHL hockey team. So 2 seasons or 2 years of that, I should say, and I kept very much in touch with this guy by the name of Mark Kumpel, who I went to high school with, his daughter Chloe. And Mark, in those 2 years, had started the Eastern Hockey League. For the first 2 seasons, Mark and Jeff Nygaard, who was the um, executive director at the time, were responsible for everything. They didn't have a social media guy. Come year 3, they wanted a social media guy. So they hired me to be the director of PR. And here I am 8 seasons later now as the associate commissioner. I'm very fortunate for what the role has turned into for me. I've obviously developed a passion and a love for junior hockey, and I take great pride in what we do. I mean, we're over 1,500 commitments now, and I think that we do a great job of knowing what our niche is, and that's placing kids into Division II and Division III college. I would say not every 10 kids go D2 or D3, but we do have the occasional kid that works his way up to Division One, and not really directly from our league, but they follow that path elsewhere. And I think that we just know that we are a great step to get to your next step. And I think that it's been fun to see it grow and build. And I think what I love about it the most is every day is a new challenge to teach one more person than the day before about what the EHL is all about.
Well, clearly that's why we got you here, is because we want to know more about the league and what's going on. How many teams are we up to now?
So this season we have 19 in the EHL, 15 in the EHLP. Next season we believe that we'll be at least 22 in the EHL and probably still the same 15 in the EHLP. There are 11 organizations that have both, which obviously that means there's some that have just EHL and some that have just EHLP. The quick synopsis of what the EHLP is: the EHLP is the younger division, typically 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who are getting just that very first taste of what junior hockey is all about, because then their next step is that EHL division, which is mostly 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, which a lot of those kids for us are coming out of prep school for the most part, a lot of them, or maybe they've gone to another junior league first or whatnot, but nearing the back end of their junior hockey career, they're coming to the EHL because they know that in 1 year with the EHL, they're going to college from there.
Okay. So I got a question for you, and you might not know this, or you do. It does, not trying to trap you. I just would like to kind of get an idea. Players playing in the elite level, do you got a sense of what your numbers are that actually move up to play in your premier level?
Yeah, so it's funny. The terminology is crazy too when you compare it to all the different leagues, right? So we do call it our premier level. I guess you could call it the bottom level.
Okay, I'm sorry,
but
I
for
as
the
a
11,
former member of what the EJHL before this,
yes,
and watching this whole, as an owner and watching this whole transition, I'm familiar with a lot of the names, but
yeah,
I'm not familiar with how the levels work this year. And
yeah, no,
that'll
it's
add
crazy.
more questions about next year in a second.
Yeah, the names have changed constantly, right? So for us, we've kind of just called our top division the EHL because that's where players want to be. They
Yep.
know they want to be in the EHL because the next after the EHL is college hockey. For
So what are
for the
those numbers that if I'm playing in the lower division, what's
yeah,
the transition numbers to get into the EHL?
I would say for the 11 organizations that have both right there in their rink, there's at least 5 or 6 kids moving up within that organization. Now you could have the rarities where Team Maryland is a team that has just DHL, and the Pennsylvania Huntsmen are a team that has just DHLP. They've they've formed this affiliation this year that, to their credit, it's allowed 5 players on their own from the Pennsylvania Huntsmen to
Right.
play for Team Maryland during this current season. So you see some of that progression during the year. Obviously, you see more of it after the year is over, because I think what our guys like to do well is they try and emphasize to the players to master where they're at. There's always this feeling, this that you need to rush and be somewhere where you're not really supposed to be, when really what you want to do is master where you're at and get the chance to play, right? What's better, to play first line EHLP and be on the power play, or to be a fourth line EHL guy and maybe every now and then you're scratched and you're rotating in for those last few spots. So I in terms of like the total number of players that move up per year from EHLP to EHL, I would say it's at least 75, but we're trying to trend that number up more and more and more towards 100 kids. And essentially, there are some kids that come and play EHLP, and they're just not quite ready yet
Right.
for junior hockey. I mean, they're 16 years old, they're dominating their high school league or whatever they're in, and they come play juniors, and they're like, wait a second, maybe I wasn't quite ready for this, and then they go play a U18 for a U18 team for a year, and then come back and go EHL. So what we're trying to do more of is, obviously, if a player comes and plays EHLP, the hope is that their next season they go and play EHL, and the number of those kids that move up continues to go up every year. One of my favorite pages on our website, if you go to our commitments tab, obviously there's a drop down there. You see every year that the EHL's put in over 150 kids, but the very last tab on there, they click on it, it brings you to a page of players that have gone from EHLP to EHL to college hockey. And that number is nearing 100 as well, which really, that's our ladder, right? In a
Yep.
perfect world, you come in, you play a year EHLP, a year EHL, and then your third year, you're in college hockey.
I appreciate that because you know that I've been an advocate of the EHL ever since I've been starting all this on social media. I think you're one of the best leagues that's found a lane and
Yep.
found an exact place that they fit, and have done a great job of supplying a service for hockey players in that lane. So that adds the question that's coming up now: is a lot of rumors out there, a lot of rumors about where you're going with the league. Uh, is there anything out there that's true? Is there an elevation of this league, or is that is that truly just a rumor?
I think it's truly just a rumor, because
You there for a second?
I think, oh, sorry. Do you get
That's
me
okay.
back now? So, yeah, to answer that question, I do think it's truly just a rumor. Um, like I was saying before, when we made our two divisions, the EHL and the EHLP, it was to try and uh, eliminate, I guess, some of the gray area about what tier are you and what classification are you and what moniker are you going by. We are the EHL, and if you go to our website and you look at our commitment list, that's what we do. So, you know, it's no shot at other leagues or whatnot, but we're not out there chasing for Division One commitments. If they come, they come. If they don't. Um,
So you
to
don't
play
see
Division One hockey,
Neil?
sorry, you go.
Do you see free hockey coming into play, or are you guys happy on the subscription model?
I, I I would be shocked if we ever go to a free model. Um,
Okay.
I just don't think it works um, in our footprint, in our section of the country. Um, Hockey's just different in the Northeast compared to some of the areas where some of the NA teams that bring 8,000 fans a night are located. It's just totally different. And to operate with a free to play model, you have to be able to generate revenue from a fan base. And in the Northeast, there's a lot more to do than just hockey. There's a few more sports to follow. So I don't ever see a scenario where we go free to play, because ultimately, uh, what benefit does that truly have for us? I don't see any. I think that we've mastered who we are, and I think helps us in a way also is it's really hard to play college hockey. especially Division I college hockey. I mean, there's 30 more schools that have a Division II or Division III program than there are that have Division I. So if those schools have 25 roster spots or so, you're talking 750 more opportunities to play Division II or Division III college hockey. The tough part is, as a player, as a family, looking in the mirror and recognizing that you're a Division II or three player, not a Division I player. And it's a hard thing to swallow because every kid growing up is in the driveway shooting pucks saying it's game 7 of the cup final.
Right,
But
right.
the to get to those levels, it's just becoming even harder. I mean, I don't want to have spend a ton of time on the NCAA transfer portal, but just look at that. Division I schools aren't even recruiting junior hockey that much anymore. The high end ones. They're
Uh,
just looking at each other's schools and saying, "Who can we pick off and get to transfer instead?" Unfortunately, what it means for the junior hockey population is that if you're not recognized as a Division I prospect at a very young age, then you have to kind of admit that to yourself. And what I like to say about the Division II and III schools that we send players to is they are getting a chance to play the second they arrive. I mean, every week, one of my favorite things to do right here, Monday or Tuesday, is I have a tab that opens up every single Division III conference. The first story I'm looking for is that Division III conference's weekly awards. And I click right there. All right, they have 3 awards, 2 of them EHL alumni. It feels like every week we get at least 2 rookies of the week, which to me is showing that you're committing to college, you're going to college, you're playing the second you get there, you're making an impact the second you get there, and then ultimately, when all is said and done, a lot of these Division II and III schools are great technically, and it's as my mother used to always say. Unfortunately, all roads of hockey lead to men's league,
yeah.
right? So
So
when you're
you're
playing
listening right
men's
now
league,
to the
what else do you?
we're listening to Junior Hockey Live. I'm Jeff Colson with Mike Boomer, and our guest is Neil Ravin. So if you got any questions, feel free to throw some questions on. I see some coming in right now. Bloomer, any questions from you for Neil?
Well, I appreciate you joining us today. The fact that, like Jeff mentioned earlier, you guys really understand where your league is and where your players are moving on to, because I think the big misconception out there is always everyone selling the D1 dream, and the dream doesn't always match up with the reality. And then kids are obviously disappointed and they kind of back their way into a D3 school or opportunity because they didn't get the D1 like they once had the dream of finding. So the fact that you guys have a clear path of where you're trying to help get your players. My question for you is, as commissioner, what is the hardest part of your job? That there's a lot of things you're managing and things that you're out there doing, but what would you say is the most difficult thing for you?
Well, we have 34 teams with 34 head coaches with different personalities. I'll tell you that much. But in work towards is that 1,500 number that's at the top of our website for our NCAA commitments. They know that they do that together. They didn't. That wasn't just one team, and I think that makes it fun. I think the camaraderie between the coaches makes it competitive, but also fun, right? Because I sometimes you have to step in and say like, all right, you didn't have to chirp back and forth between the benches. All right? That's a little unnecessary, but it's what makes the league fun because they know that ultimately they're working together to get that number higher and higher and higher. And just kind of the point that we've been talking most here, I think the challenge is just, we are a pay to play junior hockey league. So we're not what players are looking at first. The first thing that's on their mind is how can I go play for free in the North American Hockey League? Talented enough, and that's an option for you, by all means, take it. But what I like to say is, as you're getting older in age, um, if they haven't found you, there's a reason to that, right? Like if you're good enough, they'll find you, right? I started this whole thing off by saying one of every 10 kids in our league does go. Division One, right? So those kids have to be found. It's the 9 other out of the 10 that are willing to admit to themselves, hey, you know what? Maybe it is Division 2 or 3 for me, but if that's the case, my focus is the NESCAC conference, which includes Wesleyan and Tufts and Bowdoin, some of the highest academic schools in the country. And honestly, that's what makes the parents happy too, right? Because then they know if that's their focus and that's what they want to do and that's what the EHL is going to help them do, come the time they're 23, 24 years old, they're going to be in a great position in the working world.
Neil, the process. First, I'd probably challenge the 1 in 10, and we got to get your boy on that. You've got probably Nygaard's one of the best statistical guys from junior to college and college numbers around. So we got to throw him on that one. I'd probably challenge that number a little bit, but who cares? Apples, oranges. It's going to be a decent number anyway. The question I have to you is, how do you reach the rest of the country? You guys have got a stranglehold on that East Coast market. I shouldn't say a stranglehold, but you've got a prominent footprint in that East Coast market. How do you reach out to the rest of the nation? And is there any chance that you will ever see the EHL on the other side of the Mississippi?
Well, this is the second year that we're going to have a combine in Michigan. We had one this past April. We're having one again this upcoming April. And all of our coaches, when it comes to recruiting, they travel all over. One of the biggest showcases that they go to is the CCM showcase, the hat that I'm wearing right here, which takes place in Denver every Memorial Day weekend. When it comes to research and stuff, just look at our league website and look at the rosters, right? The EHL rosters their hometowns are not centered around the locations of those programs. And what I mean by that is those teams are looking all over the country for those players on those EHL rosters. The EHLP rosters, those probably are a lot more focused on the local kids that are in high school at the same time and are living at home and whatnot. But when you look at our EHL rosters, I think what's made our league so successful is those 19 EHL teams are not recruiting just within their own state. They're recruiting all across the country, and they're selling one kid at a time the reasons why they should come east from Colorado or California or you name it, because of the benefits that our league has to offer. It's awesome to see where all the kids come from because the number of players that are coming east across the Mississippi every year continues to just grow and increase.
Okay, good answer. Tell me a little bit about your podcast. You do a podcast for the league. How can people find that? When does it come out? And what do you talk about?
Every Thursday, the eShow podcast is released. Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud. I put it on YouTube too. It's on the front page of our site every Thursday. Totally random idea that I thought of one year. It was in the middle of the 2019-20 season. We brought it on. I realized that a few players were listening and liked that we were talking about them. It helped grow when we started doing power rankings for the EHL and EHLP teams. It grew further when we started doing fantasy, where we pick players in the league, and based off the points that they accrue, we get fantasy points. It's fun. Like it's truly fun. I can't talk about it without smiling because the kids eat it up. The players in the league eat it up because they want to have their team talked about as the number one ranked team in the power ranking. It's like the college football thing, right? Like, they love seeing that number next to their team name. And then when it comes to fantasy, it's funny how many parents reach out after their son is chosen. I hope Johnny scores goals for your fantasy this week. And it's cool, right? Because it's what gets them back to listen every Thursday, right? And I'll tell you what, I go back to our coaches. You got to watch what you say on the podcast because they hear every single word. But honestly, as I started this whole thing off, my goal every day, my challenge every day is to teach one more person than the day before about what the EHL is. And the podcast does just that, because we do a great talking about all the teams and everything going on in this season in particular in the EHL. The 19 teams that we have, the parity is on another level. And it's something that we talk about every week in the podcast. So it comes out every Thursday. So
That's awesome.
There's not one this week, I will say, because there were no games over the holiday. There's one next Thursday, though, and every Thursday after that.
Right, no problem. Neil, we thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate your new venture. Instead of just talking about the process from 16 to 18 to juniors to college, like our other podcasts, this is strictly just talking about the leagues and the players and the coaches, and that's a big, big help. We'll put a link to your podcast on our on this video and or on this podcast. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, Neil, how do they get a hold of you?
Neil at easterly.org.
Look at how easy that is. This is great. Neil's been a great guy for years doing this. Once in a while, I'll come across his information, or he'll come across mine, and we've had a great relationship just from a distance. It's great to put a name with a face, and make sure you keep up the good work, because the more information that's out there, the easier it is for people to figure out this whole quagmire of information about junior hockey. And so we appreciate you coming on tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
No PHL, and awesome. Just awesome to get Neil on. Bloomer, what'd you think? Did you learn anything?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think a lot of it validated some of the stuff we already knew about the league, but it's nice to hear it from, the person running it. And, I think, I wasn't too familiar with the starting to try to push kids up from, and it seems as though that's kind of like a second option to maybe playing midget hockey or high school hockey in that area. So I'll be interested to see as they try to grow that and where the league. Did we freeze?